I don't know that I believe everything happens for a reason. I do think that it's our job to make meaning out of our experiences on the back end. I don't think things are meant to be because I just know too many people who have died young, who have left behind loved ones and families. And for me, I have survivor's guilt. Why do I still get to be here? So I can't necessarily go all in on everything happens for a reason, but I can, and I think it's my job to make meaning on the back end, make it mean something, that I am still here, and then try to fit in, okay, so what now?
Welcome back to Through the Dip, the show about the hard lessons learned in life while going through the dip. I'm here in San Diego with Courtney Clark, and we're going to talk about something that is kind of really hits hard and personal to me, the idea of being able to give up goals. Courtney, I'm really curious about this idea that you have about adaptability versus grit leading to success. Can you tell me more about that?
I sure can. So when I struggled in my life, one of the key pieces of advice people gave me was like, think positive, right? It's all about like,
Yeah.
have a positive spirit, expect good things to happen. And what I realized from actually going through these experiences is that I think that success, resilience, whatever you want to call it, I think that the root of that is actually not positivity as much as it is adaptability. I think being able to be adaptable, to flex and change and be like, well, this is not exactly what I wanted. It's not what I expected, but I can adapt. That is how we get back on a new track. And ultimately, yes, that makes us positive.
Yeah.
But positivity is like the outcome, not the input.
So you're saying that like if there is a huge challenge in front of me saying like I'm going to get through it, I'm going to stay positive through that. Maybe that's not the best way to get through it. It may be this ability to say, you know what, maybe I need to tweak something, maybe I need to change something.
That's right. So I think that grit can get in our way because the concept of grit, I think we've over-indexed on that perseverance side of grit. So my research team and I, we just completed a national study, and we found that 71% of working Americans, they were taught to never, ever, ever give up on a goal, even if it isn't working out, even if it's not at all realistic.
Yeah.
And so if that's what we're taught, right? Never give up. Quitters never win. You can do anything you put your mind to. If that's what we're taught, then we're going to keep persisting, keep persevering. But sometimes that's just banging our heads into a brick wall. And I learned that the hard way, that I couldn't go back to life as normal. I couldn't just go back to my old goals and just work a little harder. I had to work differently, and I had to be willing to aim differently and make some changes.
Yeah.
And I could still be successful, but not if I had this one idea in mind. So I think that grit is a wonderful thing, but it has to be combined in tandem with this idea of adaptability and change.
Yeah, that's because I feel like growing up, this idea of like stick to itiveness, like whether it's sports or whether it's school or whether it's your first job, just like keep going, get through it.
Yeah.
Like not, you know what? I actually don't like doing this thing. I want to change. And I think about like a lot of career changes I've made, and I've always felt like I stuck with something longer than I probably should have. And it gets to a point where it's just like untenable anymore.
It's a tightrope because certainly you don't want to, if we're talking about, where do we learn this as children? You don't want to teach children, oh, just give up if it gets hard, quit the team if you don't like it anymore. Because so often, if you do stick it out and you get better at the sport or reading or whatever it is, then you do come to like it. There are some things where persisting is the right path and it does make sense. It's just that that's one tool.
Yeah.
And we can't apply the tool of perseverance all the time because then we're persevering on dead end goals, things that, you know, don't make sense, or maybe a role that's outlived its usefulness, whether that's a career path or a specific job or a relationship.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes we do need to move on from things. And if we're just stuck with that, like, but I don't want to be a quitter, I'll feel guilt or a shame, then we're going to be spending a lot of our precious resources, time and money on things that aren't making us successful.
Yeah.
For me, this all came when my life was crashing down. I was 26 years old. I had just gotten married. Everything was going really well in my life right up until it wasn't. And I was diagnosed at 26 with cancer,
Wow.
invasive melanoma, stage 1B to 2A. And my marriage didn't survive the cancer. And when I came out of that experience, life was so different for me. Even though, like, my job hadn't changed, I still lived in the same city,
Mhm.
but I was single when here I thought, like, I married and we bought a house and we're talking about babies, and now I'm thinking about, "Oh my gosh, I have to build my whole life over. I have to date now knowing that I'm damaged goods. I can't have children." It's not a good idea for me to get pregnant. It would mean my cancer
Mhm.
would come back, pretty intensely. So, like, everything I thought my life was gonna look like was
Yeah.
all of a sudden taken away from me, and I couldn't do things the way I planned.
Yeah. What did it look like holding on to grit or this idea of like I'm going to achieve these goals that I had created when you're 26 before having this life altering news?
I mean, it looked impossible. And everybody was telling me, just think positive thoughts, eat healthy foods, join a gym, right? Do all of these things. Um, and it was like, okay, those will all help, but they're not gonna solve for some of these problems.
Yeah.
Um, because 2 years later, my cancer came back.
Wow.
Didn't matter that I was eating healthy and meditating and going to yoga class, um, it thinking positive thoughts, like, it didn't actually make a difference, and that, I think, was when I realized I can only control what I can control, and, I can try to keep holding on and following the same path, and gosh darn it, I'm just gonna make it work. But that's not always realistic. Sometimes working harder at something does not make it turn out. And that was hard to let go of because I mean I was taught, you make a plan and keep your eyes on the prize, you don't give up. Um and for that to fail me as a philosophy was a pretty big shift. But what I realized is that giving up on one plan, one path, doesn't mean I'm giving up. I'm not giving up on myself. And then, in fact, like, if I had kept banging my head against the brick wall, no, it has to turn out the way I envisioned it when I was 18 years old. Like, that would actually be giving up on myself. That maybe the more, and I'm saying the word positive, but like maybe the more hopeful, positive path is to believe in myself more than I believed in the plan,
Yeah.
the path. Um, and so to try to rebuild it.
So you get diagnosed a second time with cancer,
Yes.
and what do you do with that news?
I just had the cancer treated. But at this time, I had started a relationship with someone who was really understanding
Mm.
and a very good partner to me. And that's when it started to all click together of like, oh, I had guilt around getting a divorce. You're not supposed to get a divorce. That's giving up, quitting,
Mhm.
right? Um, but if that hadn't happened, if that marriage hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been living in the place that I was living to meet the partner that I was supposed to meet. And then a few years later, at one of my scans to check and make sure that I didn't have cancer, my doctors found that I had a brain aneurysm.
Wow.
that was about to hemorrhage. So talk about one thing leading to another. If I hadn't been diagnosed with cancer, they never would have found the brain aneurysm before it ruptured.
Wow.
It was about to hemorrhage in like 3 different places.
So like this really bad news that's like horrible kind of gives way to this. They found something that probably would have ended your life.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm not a bright sider, right? I'm not like everything happens for a reason. That because I have known through my work so many people who have had cancer, I can't condense it into something that's simple,
Mm-hmm.
and positive. I don't know that I believe everything happens for a reason. I do think that it's our job to make meaning out of our experiences on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think things are meant to be, because I just know too many people who have died young, who have
Yeah.
left behind loved ones and families. And for me, I have survivor's guilt. Why do I still get to be here?
Yeah.
Um, so I can't necessarily go all in on everything happens for a reason, but I can, and I think it's my job to make meaning on the back end, make it mean something, that I am still here, and then try to fit in, okay, so what now?
Yeah.
And when that happened for me, especially going through the brain aneurysm, which was a long, very painful process. For me, it was much scarier than the cancer. It was much more painful than the treatment for my cancer. I had 3 brain surgeries in 8 days.
Oh.
Um, so walking again, reading again. I could not work a whole day for over a year, because I just didn't have the stamina. So for me, all of those experiences led me to realize it's not about just being positive about it. It really is adapting and pivoting and going, okay, this is here now, and I got to find a new way to be successful.
You've literally had these experiences over and over again where you've created goals and you've said like, here's where I'm going in life, and then something's happened
Yeah.
that kept you from getting there.
But I don't even think that it's unique to me. Every single one of us has had some goal that we set, some idea that we thought for our future, right? I'm going to marry my high school sweetheart,
Mhm.
whatever it is. We all set some goal, some plan and vision for the future, and then it gets interrupted. And so that's why I get so excited to talk about this, is because like my experience of it is intense,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's totally universal.
Yeah. It really is. Cause like, when I think about like my own experience with business and people that I talk to all the time on this podcast, right? There's all these moments that they have to decide like, do I give up on this or do I keep going with this?
Yep.
How do you manage that tension between the idea of grit or like you're going to go for it, you're going to stick to it versus like quitting's okay?
So I think the important thing to do is to take the emotion out of it. And I say that as a person who's pretty emotional and sensitive. I like to have feelings about things and
Mhm.
like, okay, what does my gut say? But the best thing that we can do, the research is pretty clear, is that we take the ego out of it because we've gotten all that cultural messaging about quitters never win and never give up. We have to remove sort of our feelings about success and goals from the equation and just get really literal about what is realistic. So you want to make a list of what resources do you have to put towards the goal. It's
Mhm.
resources like time and money and support system, mentorship, skills, knowledge, all those things, right? So you've got resources that you can put towards the goal.
Mhm.
And then you got to do the research. What does it actually take? And research does not mean asking one person who's done it, right? It should mean a lot of people who've done it. And you should really have a range of answers of, like, oh, okay, this is what it would take in an ideal perfect world. And this is what the struggle bus version would look like. Cause you just don't know from the front end where you're gonna fall.
Yeah.
And then you got to compare and you have to decide, does this make sense? Is this actually worth it? Or does this not work out I don't have the resources that it takes. I mean, that's all goal pursuit is just really directing resources towards what you want.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the resources, then you're going to be really frustrated. And that's where I think a thing called toxic positivity comes in. If you've heard of the phrase toxic positivity, my definition of that is the belief that your attitude earns you the right to a certain outcome.
Is that akin to like manifesting at all? Like, there's this big like idea of like, like just believe that this is going to happen and then it will happen, or is
Yeah.
it like just the oh this bad thing happened, but that's okay? Like,
It's more like that. Yeah, but it's this idea that because I'm a positive person, only good things will happen to me.
mm,
And I do think that your attitude matters a lot. It does. Um but that it doesn't preclude bad things from happening to you. So again, it's that tightrope.
yeah,
Um, and but toxic positivity is like, nope, no bad things. I'm ignoring the bad things. I'm not even going to address the bad things. Um, it's so, but when we can look realistically at our goal pursuit, do we have what it takes? It's really important also to ask, do I want to give what it takes?
mm,
I had a friend early on say to me, she gave me such great advice. She was really successful, very young, just had everything, multiple degrees, C-suite, husband, kids, like did all this volunteer work. And she said, every yes is a no to something else.
mm. Like you're making a decision that you're spending your resources or time or whatever over here, which means you can't over there.
That's right. That's right. You're depleting the resource. My dad would call it cost benefit analysis, right? There's just literally so much time. There is so much money. There is so much moral support that your family can give you or whatever it is. Like almost every one of your resources, if you use it towards goal A, you don't have it for goal B. That that's just physics.
Yeah.
And so that's when you say like, well, how do you know if you should keep persevering or not? You have to be able to look realistically at d- do I have what it takes? And then you want to set benchmarks. So before you go into goal pursuit, you got to set like, okay, here's how I'll monitor my progress along the way and know if I should keep going or if I should stop. Because you don't want to get partially towards the goal. There's that thing, sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that's real.
It's real. Once you've invested your time, your money, whatever, into something, then the idea of stopping becomes even harder. So set those benchmarks on the front end so that they'll pull you up short. And you get to a benchmark and you're like, oh, I'm actually not meeting my benchmarks here.
Mhm.
And that does not bode well for continuing on this path.
Running a business is hard enough. Your website shouldn't make it harder. That's why I started Hustlefish. Instead of dealing with faceless website support bots that never really help, you can just talk to me and my team. Real people who feel like a part of your team. I'm so confident this will be the best experience with web help you've ever had. We have a 30-day money-back guarantee. Head to hustlefish.com to book a free call and let's make your website easy. How do you start thinking through that realistically? Because like when I've been a part of like different startups and have started different ideas of like and tried to run different businesses. Um, how do you think through it realistically? Because like when you're starting something, you're going into it. There's all this optimism, and you're so excited about it, and like of course the world is going to love your product. How couldn't they?
Yep.
How do you start taking a step back from that and thinking about it realistically?
So there's two mindsets that we live in when there's goal pursuit. Evaluative mindset and implementation mindset. And so evaluative mindset, that's everything we were just talking about with like the list of the resources and the setting of the benchmarks. And once you're actually starting towards the goal, once you get other people on board, anytime you've done anything beyond evaluating, you flip into implementation mindset. And implementation mindset, that's where that like, we're so excited,
Yeah.
positivity, the excitement builds. And it's really hard to stop that wheel once it's turning.
Yeah.
So this is why that list of resources that I said you should list, that has to include trusted advisors and mentors. Because those are the people who are going to help you. If you didn't set good benchmarks to know, like, here's how we're going to know if we're successful or not, right?
Yeah.
By year one, we should have, it might be look like revenue, or it might look like clients, or, there's some metric that will help you know if you're on the right track.
Yeah.
And maybe you miss a number. It does not necessarily mean it's the right time to give up, because maybe you are like, okay, I know we didn't make this metric, but I have a plan to reinvigorate towards this. And I like the reason I think this is a good plan. So there might be reasons you might miss a benchmark and still keep going.
Yeah.
But if you're missing benchmarks consistently, if you're missing lots of benchmarks and you don't have a reasonable plan to get new resources, to reallocate resources, then you are walking towards a dead end. You're banging your head on that brick wall.
I think a trap that I've fallen into many times is that I'll set goals and benchmarks and whatever, but then I come up with really good reasons why I haven't hit those. And looking back, they weren't good reasons at all.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think because I wanted this to work so bad that I was willing to try to justify why we didn't hit that sales number or that client acquisition number.
That's your implementation mindset.
Yeah.
Totally.
I think so when you're talking about implementation mindset, something that I think I've made a mistake of, this is just coming to me right now as we're talking about this, is that the thing that I can control is building the thing
Mhm.
or creating the infrastructure, like doing the work.
Yeah.
And like there's a lot of stuff you can't control, like sales is a lot harder to control. And so like it's easy to be like, oh, let's not focus on that. Let's
Haven't you
focus on
heard, Stephen? If
building
you
s-
build it, they will come.
They always do. Oh man, if only that was true. Wow. So how do you become okay with letting go of goals?
I'm going to tell you. So we have come up, my research team and I found that one of the key issues when you've hit that brick wall and you're like, I don't think this is working, but I don't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we can't let go is because we don't know what comes next.
Yeah.
Of course, we're clinging to that goal because that's our goal. And our goals somewhat come to define us, especially those of us who are achievement oriented. So in that case, you want to take a long, hard look at the goal, because I would bet that the goal was too small. And if you thought I was going to say too big, you're not. That's what everybody takes. No, too small. Because so often what happens is we confuse goals and plans. A lot of what we call a goal is actually a plan. You know how you tell the difference?
Yeah. How do you know?
Okay, so a plan is one path. It's like a straight line, right? We're gonna do A, and then A leads to B, and
Yeah.
then C is gonna happen, and then they will come, right? And then they'll just magically, they will hear about us, and people will come. It's A to B to C to D, and it's just this like one way to get
Mhm.
there. If it's just a path, right? Then that's a plan, not a goal. A goal is bigger than that. A goal is so the process that I went through, I call goal supersizing.
Okay.
So for me, coming out of cancer, I couldn't have a baby. But I had this realization, like, okay, you know what? My goal isn't actually to have a baby. And it isn't even to be a mom. I realized my goal is actually to leave a legacy.
Mm.
Because I don't know how long I'm going to get to be on this
Yeah.
planet. And I want to know that when I'm leaving something, someone, right? Something behind that will outlast me. So that idea of legacy is really important to me.
So like the idea of being a mom was a path to that legacy.
Exactly. It
But
was
the bigger
one
goal-
way.
Yeah. That's interesting because, like, I've talked to a lot of business owners about success and failure, and people that have kind of a better track record of success seem to have like a lot of irons in in the fire, but all of those irons are pointed to a singular sort of thing, and they have different ways that they can go about doing that thing.
Totally. I use this great case study of Marvel Comics. So they did amazing in the comic book. They were the big guys in the comic book market right up until it crashed in the mid 1990s. The whole market, not just Marvel,
Yeah.
but they lost like 70% of their business in really short order. And so they were trying to kind of, do more of what they've always done. They put out like collector comic book covers and they made figurines. They were selling to the same market. They were doing all, and it didn't work. And they filed for bankruptcy. And they were just managed to like just stay alive by selling the licensing to their characters. They sold out their IP, let other
Mhm.
companies use it, and they went on like that for over a decade.
Wow.
I mean, just enough money to keep the lights on
Because of the licensing deals that they were.
because of the licensing deals. So letting other companies use their characters, their IP. And then they took this really big risk and they reached out to a bank and they were like, okay, if this works, we're both going to get rich. If this doesn't work, you will own the licensing to our characters. And they got the money and they bought back all their IP and they opened the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Wow.
So they were barely surviving doing things the way they'd always done it, doing what they expected, right? That same market of collectors, collectibles.
Hmm.
It wasn't until they realized, oh, actually, their whole job, it's not to get their collectibles into the hands of more collectors. Their real goal is to get their characters into the hearts of more people. Right? It's
Yeah.
not about the method, it's about the message. And once they landed on that, they were like, oh, this opens up a whole new path. So you're exactly right that like all of these companies, they may be doing different things, but they've identified their supersized goal.
Yeah.
They know this big, broad, your supersized goal, it's like the biggest possible expression of your goal. So for me, that was leaving a legacy. And I adopted, and that's one path to that. And I also have, mentored kids, and I've written 3 books, and I've started 2 nonprofits. And so all of these, they're called parallel plans. So these parallel plans all feed into my supersized goal now that I know what it is.
Do you ever think though that that supersized goal is something that you have to give up, like this idea, or is it so big that you never have to give it up? Because we kind of been talking about like letting go of goals. Do you think there's a point in time where someone would have to let go of this idea of legacy, or once you get a goal big enough, how,
I
are you good?
I won't argue that you never have to let go of it, but I think if you're letting go of it, really think about if there's not something bigger behind it.
Yeah.
Because we're not used to thinking this way. So when I work with organizations or individuals, a lot of times it takes us several tries to crack through and like actually find what that big word is. So to me, the easiest way to do it, I was thinking in terms of turning your ABC goals into VIP goals. So ABC goals are like achievement, behavior, and comparison.
Mm.
Achievements like I want to start this business, right? Or win this award, or, I want my team to hit this number. Behavior, those are like habit goals,
Yep.
start doing this, stop doing this. Comparison, that's if somebody else is doing that, so we should too. Or I want to follow in my dad's footsteps.
Yeah.
And those are all good goals. Like I have several of them, you probably do.
Yeah.
So that's fine, but they're not supersized goals. They could get bigger. And so VIP goals are value, ideals, and purpose.
Mm.
What values do you hold that led you to set that goal that's not working out in the first place? Like, what ideals are you trying to live out? What purpose do you think you serve? What purpose did this goal serve for you?
I just started working with this business coach about 2 years ago. His name's Kelly. And he wanted me to work on our core values as a business. I was like, core values are stupid. They're cheesy. Like, we don't need core values. Like, I've worked with businesses that have core values and they don't do anything. And he's like, the problem with core values that don't mean anything is because they're not deep enough. And they change because they're not deep enough. And if you can go deep enough, you can create core values that are true regardless of what industry you're in, regardless of who your clients are, what your business looks like. And so over the last 2 years, it's been this journey of him trying to push me to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And what you said just like is so true that once you get deep enough, you get to this place of things that don't change,
Yes.
but it's hard to get there.
Of course it's hard to get there because it is so much easier. The typical way that it works is we set a goal and we set the strategy. We
Yeah.
go goal, strategy. We jump. But there are other pieces that we have to fill in and understand because a lot of times those goals are it's too small.
Yeah.
We haven't thought about like what Dan Heath calls it, what is the goal of the goal?
The goal of
And I love that, right? So when you think in terms of supersized goals, you're realizing there's this big like North Star. It's the forest versus the trees.
Mhm.
And so often we're just talking about the trees and we haven't even determined what forest we're playing in. But props to Kelly.
Do you
I want him to keep pushing you. Now I want to know what your goals are going to be.
Yeah, well, through
Because
your
value.
experience, like, how have you gotten to those deeper goals, or have you seen anything to help people get to those deeper goals,
I mean, I
those
think,
supersized goals?
yeah, I think what helps people, first of all, is when they come up against that roadblock. That's the first time that you realize, oh, maybe these goals aren't the right goals. And at first, that causes panic, right? Because
Yeah.
we then feel the shame of like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not working hard enough. The goals are the right size. I'm too small.
Yeah.
No, I think the goal was too small. The goal was actually a plan. The goal was just like the one path that you told yourself, this is how I'm going to get there. I went to school with this guy and he was like, I'm going to be a doctor and I'm going to be the same kind of surgeon that my dad is. And I'm going to go to the same medical school that my dad did. And so his version of success was only success if he got into the exact same medical school as his dad. And guess what happened when he didn't? He felt like a failure.
Yeah.
Except he got scholarship money to other awesome medical schools. But when you define your path so narrowly that only this way is success, that's a plan. That's not a goal. You got to have the supersized goal, and then you have these parallel plans that all converge and can get you there. So that way, and I call them parallel plans, not backup plans, because as a former theater kid, I don't I have beef with the word backup plans because don't you think it sounds so like secondary? So
Yeah, it's like settling, or like, if this doesn't work.
settling. It's exactly right. And that's not what it's about, right? These parallel plans, one is not better or worse. Now you may decide I'm going to throw all my resources towards this right now because maybe I'm just only one entrepreneur building a business or whatever. And so you're going to concentrate your resources on this one right now, but you've got these other ones in reserve. Or maybe you can deploy 3 at a time because they actually overlap really well. So having these parallel plans helps. And then you just flex between the plans.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe during your downtime, you can pick up a couple of these extra smaller ones that are still going to contribute something towards getting you there. But then during your busy times, maybe it's just like, okay, I got this one main one and I'm going to focus there. But that is where flexibility comes from. And we found that that was one of the key features that kept people from being more adaptable to change was they didn't know what to do. They actually really everybody liked the idea of being adaptable. We were pretty surprised when the research came back because like the number 2 success strategy was being adaptable. And we were like, all right, people do. They get it that we need to be adaptable and flexible. And boy, we really want other people, right? We point at other people, our kids, right? Our coworkers. And we're like, boy, they need to be more adaptable. But then when we asked about the behaviors of adaptability, so things like coming up with other plans, letting go of a plan that wasn't working out, giving up on goals that weren't paying off, a third of people said, absolutely not.
Yeah, like the idea of adaptability, I like that. But what it takes to actually be adaptable is pretty painful
Pretty
sometimes.
painful. I joke that it's a lot like, I want a clean house. I do not want to clean my house. So I get how that gap can be there, right? That it's like, oh yeah, to be adaptable, to be flexible, that sounds really good. And then I say, okay, well, that means you're gonna have to give up on some things. And people are like, what? But quitters never win. I couldn't
Yeah.
possibly do that. And so the cultural messaging, flips in and talks us out of it. But it's the how that we need to get better at to close that gap between what we want and what we want to do,
Yeah.
what we're willing to do. But this is the way, right? Because you realize you can see it. If you've got these parallel plans and you can flex between them, then you're like, oh, that's adaptability, right?
Yeah.
There, now I can be adaptable because I see you're not just telling me to like do something that I can't conceive of, like, oh, just change. Okay. But but now that I know what that looks like and what these other plans are and I've created them and I own them, now I can be adaptable.
Finding a place to meet and work outside your home office can be hard, but that's why I work out of Work Lab, Grand Rapids' go to space for professionals who need more than just a coffee shop table. In fact, it's where I work every day. Whether you're hosting a big client meeting or gathering your team for a strategy session, Work Lab's beautifully designed conference rooms are ready when you are. Fully equipped, easy to book, and right in downtown Ada and Grand Rapids. Check them out at worklabinc.com. How do you deal with the aspect of time though? Because like if I'm running a business, I have payrolls, I have quarterlies, I have yearlies, and like I have to fix all of these problems, right? And maybe I have this goal that I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And to supersize this goal, I think takes time and work to figure out what that actually is. Like I'm just like, oh, this is my supersized goal. This is what we're going for. It takes like there's this, at least in my experience, there's this aspect of time, but sometimes you don't have time to sit there and really be with what your goal is and say, is that big enough? Is it more of a plan than a goal? How do you handle this time element?
I hear that as a business owner. I hear that. But what I would argue is that not knowing what's most important, not knowing where you're really aiming, you're actually more distracted than if you add in this deep work that feels like a distraction from the everyday,
Mhm.
but is actually going to narrow your focus.
How do you make decisions though if you are in a place where you need to do this deep work and it takes time to do this deep work, but you have, payroll to meet or you have quarterly stuff that you have to hit and you're not hitting your goals? Like, should you just give up on those goals and say, like, you know what, we're pushing pause on everything? Like, because a business is like working on this plane in flight.
Totally. I, I think it's really unique to the situation. I mean, I don't think you should not pay payroll. I don't think you should do that. But I do think that sometimes it's like, wait, hang on. Because if we're walking the wrong direction, right? If we're walking towards a dead end, we're not actually saving ourselves any time.
Yeah.
I think it's such a unique situation that only the leaders, and I say only the leaders, but as those words left my mouth, I thought sometimes the people on the ground
Mm,
see the signs.
yeah.
And as we found in our research, actually, that leaders display higher grit and are less willing to give up on plans, even when the signs are there that it's not working. Because something about that leadership, um, taking on that leadership mantle, and maybe the persona of leaders lends themselves to that gritty, like, no, 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 we're going to just make this work. So I actually don't know that it is just leaders. that are good at making the call. I think you maybe need a real holistic temperature taking from everyone of like, how are we feeling about this?
Yeah.
Because if it is a struggle, if making payroll is a struggle, if meeting deadlines is a struggle, if everything is a struggle, then maybe we're just at like one of those times because every business just has those seasons.
Yeah.
But boy, if it lasts and it lasts and it lasts, then you got to ask, are you going the right direction?
Yeah.
Are we doing this right? Whether the direction is wrong or the vehicle's wrong or something's wrong. Because if it hasn't ever clicked into place,
Maybe something bigger at the core
there
is
may
the
be
problem.
something bigger.
And these could be like the warning sirens or the bells that are saying, hey, like maybe you don't have this core thing figured out.
That's right.
And if you have to keep rowing or you have to keep going, like you maybe do, but start looking around and figuring it out because you need to figure that out if you're going to get
Right.
to where you're going.
Rowing more persistently in this direction does not actually lead to success if success is over here.
Yeah.
And so that's what's so fascinating for me about this is that there's a lot that was universal, and then there's going to be so much that is so specific to every individual or every individual company, that it's so interesting to see that like grit is important. And we have to balance it. I call it grit resilience and growth resilience. This willingness to pivot and change and consider something different.
Earlier in the conversation, you talked about like this kid in sports and like, you tell them just to stick with it. They might
Yeah.
learn to love it or like it's okay to give up. And I think relating that to the culture, in American culture, there's this idea of like just sticking with it, just hammering through something.
Totally.
How would you like change how the culture is set up to like allow for a little bit more quitting or that quitting is okay, but not getting rid of this idea of grit? Because I think there's something magical about, sticking with something.
Yeah. So I think the answer is going to be unique to every situation because like I was one of those kids. I didn't love sports. So my parents probably needed to encourage, and they did. You would encourage me like, okay, you can't quit the team mid-season, right? You made a commitment. You're going to stick with it. But when it came to the arts, maybe we needed a little bit more of the like, it's okay. This is like a total disaster, and you do not need to spend your summer doing this program that is not serving your goals. And so every kid is probably going to be different, have different temperaments. My brother is a super competitive, like he's a great athlete. He didn't probably need to get the message of never give up. He probably needed more of the message of, hey, it's okay. You don't have to be the pitcher of the baseball team and the quarterback of the football team and but he put a lot of that on himself.
Yeah.
He maybe could have used a little of the other message. And so I think it's so individual to different people. But I think a key thing that we could start doing is being a little bit more aware of what we're putting out there. This whole thing came into my mind. I started doing this research because one night I saw 3 memes in a row scrolling Facebook that was like, never give up. You can do anything you put your mind to. Life doesn't give you more than you can handle. And it wasn't even a particularly frustrating day for me, but after the third one, I was like, oh man, we gotta knock this off. So I think if we just think a little bit more about what is the right message for this situation, the person, the circumstances, does this require grit or does this require adaptability?
Yeah. Like this idea of like, what is your own bias? What have you over-indexed in your own life? And if you're a parent looking at your kid, what is your kid over-indexing? And how do you keep that balance in a place where you need to have grit, but you also need to be able to adapt? You need to be able to set goals and stick with it, but you also need to know how to let go of those goals.
Because what happens if you tell your kid, you can't quit the team, like, no, you're gonna play this sport because I played this sport, and like teamwork builds character, and and they internalize all of that quitters never win, and then they get cut from the team. And the team quits them. And then they're gutted because they think they're not good enough, right? They feel like a loser. And childhood is made up of experiences where we don't get what we want.
Yeah.
Right, because we don't have as much control when we're kids. And so childhood is really this awesome time to be learning how to be adaptable. Maybe you have to move. Maybe you didn't get in the class with your best friend, or you didn't get the teacher that you wanted, or the all the things happen. We are so not in control as kids. And as parents, I get so many parents ask me like, how do I make my kids more adaptable? And the answer is that you help guide them through those times that they don't get what they want. And so if you gave them the message like never give up, never give up, never give up, never give up, then the first time they don't get what they want, you gotta
What do you do with it? Yeah.
yeah, you have to really help them because they're gonna be shattered because they internalize the message that if I work hard, I will always get what I want. If I never give up, things will turn out the way I need them to, and that isn't true.
What advice would you give to a business owner that's in the middle of looking, they're in the dip, their business isn't working out, they have these goals and they're just not hitting the revenue marks, the sales marks, whatever that goal was that they have?
I mean, I would tell them to pull way back, right? Why did they start this business? Who are they serving? Do the supersized goal exercise where you turn your ABC goals into VIP goals. Like, what are you really trying to accomplish here? Because so often that I've found when you start a business, you're really filling your own need. And that may be great because there may be a huge market that also needs what you needed. Um, and so, but if you're not speaking to them, if you haven't been able to articulate that well, you got to pull way back and find the missing piece before you go right from I have this goal and here are my processes.
Yeah. I think everything that you've been saying really hits home because in creating a business, I've created so many different goals and stuff, and just realizing that maybe some of those goals are more plans than goals.
Yeah.
They're like, or they're just metrics or numbers, and the actual goal needs to get deeper instead of just, I want to hit this revenue mark. I want to have these many employees. I want to service this amount of customer. I think those are important. I think we need to,
Absolutely.
but
Plans and strategies can't get anywhere without them.
yeah, but like I think a really amazing point that you brought out was that those are just should serve more as maybe benchmarks. As am I building towards this bigger goal that I have?
Yes.
I think the challenging thing for me that I'm going to need to sit with after this conversation is how do you take a step back enough to really understand and figure out what that supersized goal is? Because without that supersized goal, all you have is plans and benchmarks for what you're trying to do, and you lose that why.
Right. And don't do it alone. When you're looking for what that supersized goal is, I highly recommend don't do it alone. Pull in other people because
Yeah.
that gives you a broader view of yourself. A lot of times, other people, you ever had a friend and you're like, man, why can't you see? Like, you're always dating the wrong kind of person or what,
Yes.
like, we're so good at pointing out what other people are doing wrong.
Yeah.
So bring in other people who can help you with this assessment
Mhm.
because what I've found is a lot of times that supersized goal, it's already a through line in your life. Like it's popping up in other places. I always say that that supersized goal, it always existed.
Yeah.
You may not have the words for it yet, but once you land on them, you're like, "Oh, man, that's been cropping up through my life for years."
Yeah.
It's like this little thread that kinda weaves through some personal stuff usually and professional stuff, and so other people might, with their outside view, have a little easier time helping you narrow down what that is. Some people might hear this for the first time, and especially if they've been marinating in the positivity, quitters never win culture, you could hear this and think, like, this is really negative,
Mhm.
right? This is like uber realistic, even pessimistic, of like, ugh, just, what do I do? Just set small goals so I can like achieve them tomorrow. And I would argue Absolutely not. This is not about settling. This is not about setting, mediocre goals or having low expectations. This is the process through which you can set huge goals, BHAGs or stretch goals or whatever you call
Yeah.
them, and achieve them because they're the right goals and you've conserved your resources to be able to achieve them. You're not going 8 different directions and depleting resources over here where they don't really matter, but you're really making sure that you are rowing towards that big goal.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Could you do one small thing for me? Whatever platform you're currently on, just hit the subscribe or like button. We're just getting started, and doing that one simple thing can make a big difference. If you want to go deeper, check out throughthedip.com and hop on my email list. I personally share the lessons I learned from each episode there. Through the Dip is a project of Hustlefish that's hosted by myself, Steven Souter, and edited by the amazing Sean Freeman. We're produced out of Work Lab, a co-working studio right in beautiful downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan.